Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series. Can we save the Oakland A's? And we are potentially on our way to our best regular season with this Oakland A's franchise here in 2042. As we sit here on August 1st, we've got a 72-30 record with a 19-game lead on the Texas Rangers in the AL West. Well positioned for another playoff appearance and hopefully to earn not just the best record in the American League, but hopefully home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Main goal over the course of this episode is going to be to try to keep this team healthy. Ernesto Comunez day to day with a sore ankle, not a serious injury there, and Luis Godina with a sprained knee. We're being very cautious with the first base slash second baseman. He's only day to day with that injury, but given that we've got a huge lead in the division, not going to take any risks, and we did just put him on the 10-day injured list. As we take a look at our schedule for this month of August, start out on the road against Seattle and then a week-long homestand against Texas and Tampa Bay. And then a lot of games in the division in the middle of the month at the Angels, at Texas, and at Houston. Come home against Colorado, home against Texas, and then we'll finish off against the Dodgers. Interesting decision for us is going to be who we're going to bring up in September. Got some very interesting prospects in AAA that can supplement our roster, and who knows, it's not inconceivable that someone that we bring up from AAA might end up the 25th or 26th person on the playoff roster when all is said and done, particularly if we do end up with some injuries, which I'm certainly not hoping for. And as we come out of the trade deadline, so there's going to be nothing else that we can do other than look at our minor league system, or I guess perhaps the waiver wire to improve this roster. We're still set up to lose about $6 million this year. Hopefully we'll have a long run in the playoffs to ensure that we do make money this year. But I think some of you in the comments to recent episodes have commented on this. I don't think we're going to make an offer to Josh Gorna. He's a interesting prospect for somebody that we got in the 6th round, but that's only because we and every other team in the majors let him slide there because he was committed to TCU. And Gorna said he's looking for a bonus significantly above $11 million. With money that we have picked up in trades, we've got budget room to bring it on board, but that money that we spend for him would go against our P&L this year and almost certainly ensure that there's no way for us to deliver a profit. And we have found in recent years that if we don't deliver a profit, Mr. Fisher is not particularly willing to increase our budget. We've made it to $200 million this year after a profitable season last year, but I think in our 4 World Series titles that we've won over the course of this Oakland A's playthrough, I think at least 3 times after the 4 World Championships, our budget was the same or lower the next season. So delivering profits is what he really cares about, and the hope is to deliver a profit this year, but that's not my primary goal. Our primary goal is to win the World Series, and with the way this team is positioned, as I noted, with the best record in baseball thus far, hopefully we can make that happen. And we won 3 straight on the road in Seattle to get the month off to a good start. So that is the good news. But as we sit here, you can see Godina, even though he's now on the IL, still ranks 2nd in the league in ribbies, leading the league in OPS. And his running mate, Jonah Richards, who is 3rd in the league in OPS and leading the league in WAR, now has a strained oblique that's going to impact him for the next 2 weeks. Our all-star catcher is certainly a critical player to our success this year, hitting .323, 18 homers, and 57 ribbies. Scored 81 runs and put up a 5.4 WAR, thanks in part to his outstanding defense. given that we've got such a huge lead in the division, we're going to be conservative with him too, but certainly at some point we're not going to be able to put all of our stars on the injured list, but hopefully the injuries will stop coming. And the injury to Richards will allow us to get our first look at the major league level at Omari Cephas, who was in the mix to be our backup catcher this year before we made the trade for Markley. Cephas has had a pretty productive year for us in his first full season in AAA this year with a 128 WRC plus, 3.3 WAR. We're going to let Markley start against right-handed pitching, as he's a bit better defensively and a bit more experienced, but let Cephas be our starter against left-handed pitching, as his splits indicate that he could be a somewhat more successful batter at the major league level against southpaws. And we continue winning every day, running our record to 7-0 in the month of August and pushing our winning streak to 10 in a row overall. But unfortunately, these little injuries just keep creeping up. Another key player, Chisin Iwata, our excellent shortstop, going to be out for a week with a sprained ankle. We may just put him on the 10-day IL as well. I'd say that if we were in September and we had 30 players on the roster, we'd probably just bench him for a week to get him healthy, but would rather have a body up for the next week to help us out. And we're willing to maybe mix 2 or 3 games where he would be healthy next week by putting him on the IL. No need to take unnecessary risks when we are sitting here on August 7th with a 24.5 game lead in the division. And with our 79-30 record, we are, looks like, 13.5 games up on the Mets for the best record in baseball. So I don't think a couple extra days without a couple of our big players is going to make a big difference in where we finish in the ultimate standings at this point. Feel more bad for the likes of Godina and Richards that they may fall off a bit in their opportunity to lead the league in some key categories this season because of the time they're going to spend on the IL. But ultimately, it's about winning a championship with this team, and being conservative with the guys who are banged up hopefully will put us in the best position to be able to do that come October. And with Iwata headed to the IL for hopefully only the next week and a half, we're going to call up another 24-year-old to join Cephas and make his major league debut. And that is Mike Homer, the number 63 prospect in baseball, two-way player, potential good defensive player with a lot of versatility across a lot of positions. The bat is a bit questionable, but he's durable, and he's also developed into a guy looks like he could be a useful back of the rotation or a long relief type of arm. 10-5 with a 3.76 ERA in AAA for us this year, with a 2.3 WAR. He's spent parts of the last 3 seasons in AAA and been a pretty productive pitcher. The hitting is where he's had an issue, hitting just 246 this year, only a 62 WRC plus. The former second-round pick, don't know if he's ever going to be a everyday starter for us, given his offensive limitations. But given the fact that he is a lefty, as we said, at least in terms of his batting, who's durable, can serve as a very useful utility player off the bench and also supplement our roster with his pitching. It's not inconceivable he's got a spot on this team in future years. We're going to use him as a long reliever / mop-up guy right now. But given that he is a left-handed hitter, and we have only one lefty in the lineup right now, the young DH Juan Ramirez, given the injury to Richards, We're going to start Homer at third base, pivot Pimentel to second, and Amari Alcindor to short against right-handed pitching in Iwata's absence. Alcindor will go into the lineup against left-handed pitching, so some more consistent playing time for Alcindor this year, although he hasn't necessarily deserved it. And we'll see if either Homer or Markley can make the most of their introduction to the majors. And we did finally lose a game against Tampa, but still off to a 9-1 start in the month of August. But every time we're stopping to check in on our team, we're telling you about an injury, and nothing has changed there. Ernesto Comunez diagnosed with a rotator cuff strain, and he's going to be out for about 4 weeks. Certainly not optimal, but he has not had a very productive year, coming back from an injury-shortened 2041, put up a 5.16 ERA with 9 homers allowed over 61 innings. Certainly would hope, with it only being August 11th, that we get him back by mid-September and he can potentially compete for a spot on the playoff roster, which is by no means guaranteed for him, which, given that he's a 24-year-old who's already a one-time All-Star, the fact that a spot on the playoff roster for him is by no means certain demonstrates the strength of our pitching staff. But right now the focus is going to be on getting him healthy and making yet another call to AAA. And with Comunez on the IL, we've brought back the youngster David Ibarra. He's been up and down a couple times this year, pitched only 4 games in the major leagues. He's really gotten caught in a numbers game because he's been certainly respectable over his time with us, although he has given up 3 homers in 9 2/3 innings. That's certainly the big criticism of him at this point, but don't think that giving up the long ball is ultimately going to be a huge issue for him. And the injury to Comunez will give us an opportunity to see Ibarra for another few weeks, since he certainly was going to be a call-up in September. Now we'll hopefully have him on the roster for almost the final 2 months of the season. And if he pitches well, he could certainly be in the mix for a spot on the playoff roster as well. And it's getting kind of ridiculous now. We did win here on August 11th to stretch our record to 10-1 in the month. But now Doug Weiss, day-to-day with mild shoulder inflammation for the next 2 weeks, went just 52 pitches today in his start. We are certainly going to put him on the IL as well. Pretty insane that in the last 12 games of game time at this point, we've had to put 5 very important players on the injured list, but we are being perhaps unnecessarily conservative with all of them. The fact that we have at this point a 26.5 game lead in the division lets us be very conservative and not worry too much about potentially losing the lead in the division or the battle with the Tigers at this point for the best record in baseball, as they are 12.5 games behind us, even though they've won 6 in a row. And with the injury to Mr. Weiss, another one of the prime prospects in our organization will be making his major league debut. And in this case, it's the top prospect in our entire organization, the number 9 prospect in baseball, Luis Villarreal. Picked him up in that trade with the Padres a couple of years ago that has worked out really well for us in retrospect. We traded away Mike Gallick, the starting pitcher, and Daniel Blanco, the reliever, for him. And Villarreal has really blossomed in our farm system. We signed him to a 10-year, $68 million extension while he was in Double-A earlier this year. Promoted him several weeks ago to Triple-A, 2-3 record, 3.35 ERA, 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's combined for a 5.5 WAR between Double-A and Triple-A this year. Another guy who was likely to be coming up for us in September. And with all these injuries, you're kind of getting a bit of a preview on most of the guys that might have been September call-ups. So probably not going to have anything too interesting and innovative to do with the fact that we've still got 26 players on the roster and 5 major leaguers on the IL at this point. The young center fielder, Bobby Armstrong, now day-to-day with a strained back. We're not going to put him on the IL quite yet, but we are going to bench him against right-handed pitching and let the left-handed hitting Jesus Aguilar play against righties. So Armstrong will be sitting out more days than not over the past week, and hopefully we'll get back to full health sooner rather than later. And we'll get another left-handed bat into the lineup against righties to hopefully make up for the loss of our most important left-handed hitter in Jonah Richards. And the bad news for our A's is that we only had a 4-3 week, which with the way we've been playing this season is a absolute disaster. But the good news is no new injuries, and Jonah Richards and Chisin Iwata both ready to come off of the IL as they are fully healthy. We know Cephas will be going back down. He was just 3 for 18, did get a little playing time, but we'll send him back to AAA for the time being. Presumably Homer will also be headed back down, although that may require a little bit more thought. He did strike out 3 and 2 1/3 innings in his only action on the mound for us. Hitting wise, he's actually done much better in the majors than he ever did in the minors. 10 for his first 25, so batting .400 with a 165 WRC plus. That's the reason maybe we keep him around, but we'll take a look at the roster. If we do end up sending him down, it will likely only be for another couple weeks until September call-ups. And given that Mike Homer has played so well for us, we decided to send down Chris Lance, first baseman who we picked up in a trade with Atlanta a couple years ago, hitting .221 for us in 95 at-bats, playing primarily off the bench for us, so he has not been very productive at all, and he doesn't bring the defensive versatility that Homer brings. And this is Lance's last year with options, so he's going to get some time in AAA. He's already been there down briefly once this year where he was very productive. Very conceivable that we'll call him back up in September, but with a guy like him who may not be part of our long-term plans, it's not a guarantee that he'll be back with the big club. And unfortunately for Mike Homer, but probably fortunately for our team, Luis Godina is now back and ready to play again. So Homer ended up only with 1 extra day in the majors, even though we tried to keep him up for as long as possible and set Lance down instead. But Godina clearly going to be back on the major league roster. And at this point, the hope is that Doug Weiss will be fully healthy in about a week when he's eligible to come off of the IL as well. And another outstanding week in the books for our Oakland A's. Swept 3 in Houston and then took 2 out of 3 at home against Colorado, although we did lose yesterday in extra innings when we were going for the sweep. But no surprise with a monster week that one of our key players has a big part in that, and Jonah Richards back off of the IL, 10 for 23, 435 average, 3 homers, and 9 ribbies with 7 runs scored. So the young catcher continues to have an incredible season. 27.5 game lead as we sit here on August 25th, and we are now up 15 games on both Detroit and Boston for the best record in all of baseball. Richards third in the American League in hitting, second in OPS, and still leading in batter WAR despite his time on the IL. The young DH Juan Ramirez is second in the league with 33 homers, and tied for first in the league with 101 ribbies. Godina not far behind with 96 ribbies, and Godina leading the league in OPS. And Federico Areola continues to make a strong case for a second consecutive AL Cy Young Award, leading the league in pitcher WAR and ERA, second in the league with 15 wins. Joe Heilman still second in the league in saves, although we have moved him into the stopper role as we try to get the potential trade value of our former number one starter, Jesus Saldana, who's coming back from a significant injury and has lost all his stamina up by putting him into the closer role. And the good news is that all of the key players who have spent time on the IL this month are now healthy, with Doug Weiss ready to come back from his injury. Camunia is still dealing with that rotator cuff strain. Obviously hope he's healthy for the playoffs. But as we talked about earlier, certainly no guarantee that he's going to make the playoff roster. Another reason why he might not is that Luis Villarreal has been pretty effective in his first three major league starts, going 2-0 with 17 strikeouts in the first 15 innings of his major league career. We're going to send Ibarra back to the minors for just a few days to make room on the roster for Mr. Weiss. And Dave Baumler, who has lost that captain personality that comes and goes for him at this point, will be demoted out of the rotation for the rest of the season. We want to continue to see what Luis Villarreal can do at the major league level, since with the fact we've got the youngster locked up for the next decade, and he looks like he could be an outstanding one. We want to ensure that he continues to be able to get significant innings every fifth day and hopefully prove that he can be a frontline starter for us for the next decade. And as we finished up the month of August, Jonah Richards won AL Batter of the Week for a second straight month, and he ended up being named AL Hitter of the Month, even though he spent a third of the month on the injured list, which just shows how great the time that he was up actually was. Hit .426 with 9 homers and 27 ribbies in the month of August for us, as he continues on a season that should have him a strong candidate for the American League Most Valuable Player, as he's now running away with the lead in batter WAR while also leading the league in OPS at this point. The lead in the division has been extended to 29.5 games, 94-37 record for Oakland as we sit here on September 1st. And that puts us 15 games up on the Tigers for the best record in baseball. So our magic number is down to 3 for the division. But certainly would hope that over the next 2.5, 3 weeks, we can also clinch the best record in all of the major leagues. And 3 familiar names and 1 new name back as we increase the roster to 30 here on September 1st. The two-way player Mike Homer is back, along with the, we hope, outstanding young prospect David Ibarra to join the pitching staff. Homer will obviously help us as a position player. Chris Lance up as a position player as well. And the last one is a little bit of a surprise, but we have been nursing the injury from Bobby Armstrong that doesn't seem to be getting any better. So we've actually put the young center fielder on the IL. And because of that, we're going to bring up Coy Simmons. You may remember him, the player we picked in the first round 4 years ago out of southern Mississippi. Has not really developed into the hitter that we thought he might, almost 26 years old. And after almost 4 full seasons in the minors, he's only making his major league debut now. Has not been particularly productive at the AAA level, but given that we've got the huge lead in the division and we've got some potential at-bats to give to a center fielder, although he's really probably more naturally a left fielder or a right fielder. We're going to bring Simmons up as well and see if maybe we can catch some lightning in a bottle with him. But unfortunately, at his age, seems like he's one of these college players who didn't quite achieve the ceiling we thought he might had when we picked him. As I said, over 4 years ago that we drafted him, and certainly would have expected that he would have been making his major league debut long before he was 25 years old, 255 days old. But it is what it is, and we'll see if Simmons can help us over the next week and a half or so as we're waiting for Armstrong to hopefully get healthier. And as we sit here on September 1st, the good news is that fan interest continues to creep up higher as we're playing incredibly well. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, we also did lower our ticket prices a bit. Set to lose a lot of money this year, so we're still going to need a long playoff run to make it all worthwhile. Taking a look at the team statistics, continue to lead the American League in runs scored, continue to lead the American League in runs allowed, and a 22-7 record in the month of August was our second best of this incredible season, behind only the 22-6 record that we put up in June. Worst month of the year for us was a 14-10 April. We've basically been playing well over 700 balls since then, and 94-37 on this incredible season. Certainly has the ability to be the best regular season we've ever had. Won 106 and 108 games each of the past two seasons, which are our two best marks here in Oakland. But it would certainly be extremely disappointing if we don't easily top both of those numbers with the way that this season has been going. And I just realized that with the fact we did put Bobby Armstrong on the IL retroactive to a few days ago when he last played, we had another spot on the 30-man roster. So Chad Evans, another interesting prospect in our organization who was up with us at times last year, has not had a good year in AAA for us, but hoping we'll see something from him at the major league level. The former second-round draft pick still certainly has a profile that indicates he could be a pretty useful major league pitcher for us, but haven't seen results over the last year and a half at this point in AAA and the majors that indicate he's really going to break through, but we'll give him an opportunity to see if he can prove us wrong over the next month. And with the calendar turning to September, we've now suffered an injury that could impact our chances to ultimately win it all this year in the playoffs. Doug Weiss, hamstring strain, going to be out 6 to 7 weeks. He had recently come back from that injury. So that's definitely a bummer. He'll be gone for probably until the ALCS in a best-case scenario. Hopefully we'll be able to make it there without him. Weiss, the fourth-round pick in 2033 out of Austin Peay, set to become a free agent. He's been looking for pretty significant money. More recently, we've been thinking if we do move on from Saldana and some others this offseason, maybe there's a path to bring Weiss or Gallick back. But Weiss's fragility and now his age, the fact he'll be 31 next season, has always contributed with his large contract demands to us kind of viewing him as a guy that we would let play out his arbitration years and then move on. And this latest injury that he suffered that could have an impact on our ability to win it all this year certainly makes me even more concerned about potentially thinking about an extension for him. But clearly that's not something that we need to focus on right now. And we've clinched the American League West today with a 3-1 win over Houston. That's the good news. The bad news is that despite our 97-38 record and an outstanding regular season, the injuries are really starting to take a toll. We lost our number 2 starter, Doug Weiss, for likely at least the first couple rounds of the playoffs just a few days ago. And now the youngster Luis Villarreal, a herniated disc in his back. The loss of Weiss didn't bother me as much because Villarreal had come up and was doing a good job for us. But now we're going to be without two very important members of our starting rotation for potential playoff series. And that means that maybe something wacky will happen in a ALDS. We certainly anticipate that we're going to have home field advantage as we sit here on September 5th. The Red Sox are now the closest team to us in the AL, and they're 16 games behind us in the standings. The Mets 15 and a half behind us for the best record in baseball. So certainly anticipate when all was said and done we will have home field advantage in the playoffs, but as we've seen in previous seasons, anything can happen in those 3 and 5 game series, and it certainly seems very unlikely that we're going to have either Villarreal or Weiss available when we get to the ALDS. Only benefit is that we did get a late start this year, so we will be playing regular season games until August 5th or October 5th. Maybe if things go really well with Villarreal and Weiss, maybe one of them will be ready for an ALDS, but I think that that's just a lot of hope right now, given that it's only a month until the end of the season, and we expect Villarreal out to be out for 6 weeks, and we expect the same for Mr. Weiss. Best case scenario may be that we get one of them back for an ALCS, and clearly we're going to have to win 3 playoff games without both of them for that to actually occur. And with the injury to Mr. Villarreal, we're going to give the two-way player Mike Homer an opportunity to be our number 5 starter the rest of the way. Hopefully he can eat up some innings for us, and we'll get a more consistent look at what, if anything, he's able to do against major league hitters. And we've made it to mid-September, and we just swept 3 games against the Red Sox, who, as we've talked about, one of the top teams in the AL, although now with the 3 losses in a row, they've slipped behind the White Sox, excuse me, and the Tigers as we try to wrap up the best record in the AL at 103 and 40. We are 17 and a half games up on the White Sox for the best record in the American League, and we are half a game less up on the Mets for the best record in all of baseball. So really just a matter of time at this point until we clinch home field advantage for as long as these A's are alive and well in the 2042 postseason. And we continue to roll along, but the injury situation for this team remains problematic. Ernesto Comunez now back from his injury. His injury going to be out 4 days with forearm stiffness. The stopper Joe Heilman and Jonathan Shearer also banged up, and Juan Pimentel day-to-day with a thumb contusion. Hopefully none of these injuries become something more serious, but definitely not feeling great about the way the injuries have impacted our pitching staff in particular as we start trying to get this team ready for the playoffs. And our A's just continue winning, stretching our winning streak to 6 in a row at this point. So with a 111-41 record, we have already exceeded the great 108-win season from a year ago by 3 wins, and we've still got 12 more games, or 10 more games, if I could do some simple addition to add to that total. 92-60 for the Tigers, and the Mets is the second best record in baseball. So obviously we've also clinched the best record in baseball and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Looking at what's going to happen over the last week and a half of the season or so, Luis Godina fighting to lead the league in hitting. The rookie Juan Ramirez fighting to finish second in the league in homers. Juan Ramirez and Arturo Uresti trying to finish 2-3 in runs batted in. Godina and Richards in a battle to lead the league in OPS and to lead the league in batter WAR. And Federico Ariola has slipped now to second in the league in pitcher WAR, but still leads the league in ERA and wins as he tries to capture a second consecutive AL Cy Young Award. So about a week and a half left in the season, and all that we've got left to hope for at this point is just to remain healthy. Both Villarreal and Weiss look to be about 3 weeks away from recovery, so still think it's a long shot that we'll have either of them for an ALDS. Shearer still dealing with the back spasms, but hopefully will be better in a few days. And Godina day-to-day with a sore back. We're going to bench him as well, even if it may cost him a bit in terms of opportunities to hold on to the league lead in the batting race, as well as in the race to top his teammate Richards in OPS. But looks like he's pretty secure in the OPS number at this point. But certainly if Svaldson or Costello from Boston has a good next few days while Godina's on the bench, they could easily get past him to try to position themselves to win the batting title here in 2042. And as we head into the final week of the regular season, our A's continue to do nothing but win. We've lost only 4 games in this month of September. 9 victories in a row, and we've stretched our record to 114 and 41 with 7 games left. So certainly are potentially positioned to have the most wins in a regular season in baseball history if things go really well over this final week of the season. And the final week of the season, we're going to begin that final week at home against Houston, and then we're going to finish with 4 games at home against the Angels. We're tied with the 98 Yankees for the, I guess, technically third most wins in a season in Major League history, and we're just 2 away from the 2001 Mariners and the 1906 Chicago Cubs for 116 wins, which is the most in a season in Major League history. I'm not sure if we can get a higher winning percentage than that Cubs team, but with the way that we've played this year, certainly hope that we win more than 2 of our final 7 games. Of course, the thing that both those 116-win Cubs and Mariners team have that's potentially a bad omen for us is that neither of those teams ended up winning the World Series, and that is our ultimate objective. And we have swept Houston in the penultimate series of the season. So at 117 and 41, our Oakland Athletics now have more victories than any team in a regular season in Major League history. Unfortunately, as you know, this means that it's time for me to talk about some more injuries to the team, as we just don't seem to have any luck trying to position this roster for the playoffs. Mike Blumenschein, pending shoulder injury. He's 12-5 with a 4.59 ERA. Certainly would be a major blow to lose a third starting pitcher. Camunez out with a mild hamstring strain. It's at the point now where he could conceivably be a starter for us in important games in the playoffs. And our closer Jesus Saldana also out with a sore ankle. So we're going to let him rest for the remainder of the regular season. But if Blumenschein's injury is serious, we conceivably, with Blumenschein, Villarreal, and Weiss on the IL, could arguably only have one of the four guys who have been in our starting rotation with Arriola. Now, Gallic certainly is a veteran. We may have ended up going with him over Villarreal if all were healthy. Don't mind having Arriola and Gallic as a 1-2 punch. But certainly things could get very interesting very quickly for us in the playoffs if Blumenshine's injury is serious. And as expected, significant injury news for Blumenshine. Rotator cuff strain, going to keep him out for 5 weeks. So in all probability, his season is over, even if we make it to the World Series. So 12-game winner, Blumenshine, a 9-game winner, Weiss, and Villarreal, the top young starting pitching prospect in our organization, all on the injured list as the playoffs will be beginning here shortly for our Oakland Athletics. And we ended up taking 3 out of 4 against the Angels to push our regular season record to a ridiculous 120-42. So the most wins in Major League history. Godina did end up winning the batting title with a .335 batting average. Also led the league in OPS. Jonah Richards led the league in batter WAR. And Arriola ended up leading the league in ERA, wins, and pitcher WAR, as he, as we've talked about, making a strong case for a second consecutive Cy Young Award. And Jonah Richards making a very strong case to follow up his Rookie of the Year a season ago with the Most Valuable Player this season. I think what really puts this season from the Oakland A's into perspective is we won the division by a ridiculous 42 games. And when you look at all of the other division winners combined, the Red Sox won by 3, the Tigers won by 4, the Nationals won by 10, the Brewers won by 11, and the Giants and the Diamondbacks tied, so they won by 7. You add up the margins of all 5 of the other division winners, and still doesn't add up to the 42 games that our Oakland A's won the AL West by this year. So feeling like we've definitely done our job on the field this season. No surprise, we end up leading the American League in runs scored, and you can see we led the league in every single major offensive category. Second in steals, second in base running. Pitching, very similar, led the league in runs allowed, and we were the top 3 in every major pitching category. First in defensive efficiency, third in zone rating, and the 120-42 record, as you might expect, was better than expectations, but expectations were still for an outstanding 115-47 season. We've been playing over 800 baseball since the start of September, but as we prepare for the playoffs, the question is how long we're going to have to wait for Weiss and Villarreal to be back in the rotation. I think you can make a case with Weiss looking like he's 1 week out to potentially include him on the roster for the ALDS with the expectation that he might pitch a Game 3 or a Game 4 there for us. I think it'll probably be difficult to put Villarreal onto the roster for the ALDS, but the hope is that we'll make it to an ALCS, and both Weiss and Villarreal will be healthy for that. Certainly do not expect that we'll be seeing Mr. Blumenshine again here in 2042. So a fantastic regular season for our Oakland A's is complete. Not necessarily feeling as confident as we normally would after a 122-win season for the playoffs with 3 very important pitchers on the IL. But those are the breaks, and we'll find out whether we're able to overcome those injuries in our next episode when we get into the playoffs. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.